In the Post and Courier 4 days ago, there was an article. This year's art awards was a gummy bear statue. And yes, you heard me correctly. It is not that early. A gummy bear statue was awarded tens of thousands of dollars. Congratulations from the taxpayers. My ask and our ask, those of us on this amendment, would be to not give them a recurring extra more than $500,000 a year to hand out to gummy bear statues. And instead, let's reprioritize either to those roads and bridges or to dams, as one of my colleagues said, to fix dams that may be repaired, or really any other core function of government besides gummy bear statues and other, frankly, obscene pieces of art that were also in that article. Happy to take any questions.
To be clear, instead of sending in taxpayer money for gummy bear statues and whatnot, we're going to move this money to other functions of government, such as I know DSS has been asking for more funds to be paid for compensation for foster care parents. And of course, according to this amendment that I have, that money, instead of awards for gummy bear and such things, the money is going to be now shifted to compensate parents who take care of foster kids.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate your amendment, which would be forthcoming down the road if we were able to make some savings, such as this. Again, $600,000 in recurring for gummy bear statues and other, frankly, obscene pieces of art throughout the years that have been awarded these kind of grants. Rather than upping their $600,000 a year, we could give it to foster care parents in forms of grants, other organizations through DSS. Last year, we shorted DSS about $7 million less than they asked for. We tried to fix that last year. Unfortunately, we didn't get that passed through the budget discussions on the floor last year. But we have an opportunity to try to alleviate that, and I look forward to supporting your amendment should we find the savings such as this in the budget to fix that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Kirby is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Pace, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Pace, do you have the information on how much money the arts generates for the state of South Carolina on an annual basis?
How much the art? I mean, I couldn't quite hear.
How much revenue the arts generate for the state of South Carolina on an annual basis?
When you say the arts, you're talking about the Arts Commission or just art in general?
I'm talking about arts in general. The Arts Commission is a vehicle,
right,
you know, to promote and promulgate arts activities across the state.
Well, art in general is produced by private artists, and the vast preponderance of private artists generate their art and sell their art on the private market, not due to government inducement. And in fact, throughout history, you're going to find the greatest works of art were not paid for by government. They were paid for by private collectors. We're talking basically all of Europe. People travel to see this. They travel to see art in Charleston, I can tell you that, in private galleries for the most part, all around downtown. I mean, that is the vast preponderance of art. It is not in government hands or government induced, but privately induced.
So, Mr. Pace, would it surprise you to know that the arts in the state of South Carolina last year created over $14 billion of revenue for the state of South Carolina?
$14 billion in tax revenue?
With a B.
Yeah. Yeah, that's due to the private market, the market that they're selling it on, paying taxes on that.
Would it surprise you to know that over $360 million of tax revenue was created in the state of South Carolina by the arts?
That seems like it's too much. We should be taxing those artists less, in my opinion, just like we should be taxing everybody else less.
Mr. Pace, I appreciate that, but the arts play such an important role in our society, and it truly is a vehicle that lifts so many people, both spiritually and educationally. So I would just totally disagree with your characterization of what the Arts Commission does in the state of South Carolina. And I will certainly move to table this amendment.
Well, sir, if I can answer your question, I agree that arts are important. So important, in fact, that we shouldn't be increasing, and this is not cutting the Arts Commission at all. They would maintain their budget from last year. This is cutting the increase of $600,000. But even if they keep their budget from last year and they don't get the $600,000 that could go to foster parents, when the government subsidizes certain forms of art, they increase the production of that. So if we want more gummy bear statues, if we want more obscure, bizarre forms of art that they've given awards to in the past, then yeah, the government should, I guess, keep subsidizing that. But if we want actual creative opportunities to respond to the market and respond to what the people want rather than what government wants, we should reduce this. I would say reduce this even more, but this is not decreasing their budget. It is simply removing the increase of $600,000 recurring so that we can give it to foster kids or DJJ or whatever other core function in government we should be doing. Yes, sir.
Mr. Ott's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll start, Mr. Page, by, you said 600,000?
Yes, sir.
I thought, so help me understand the 348 that's up there that I see decreasing it.
That's six FTEs, so
For 348,000, right?
right. The total should be 600,000. There might be a second page. Yeah, there's a second page to that
Gotcha.
amendment, sir.
All right. So, Mr. Page, would it be fair to say that this is punitive, this is punishment?
No, sir.
Well, help me understand why it's not punishment. You stood up there and in explaining your amendment, you brought up a specific you brought up a specific item that you didn't like that the Arts Commission spent money on. You talked about, I think you said, gummy bear statues.
Mm-hmm.
Not familiar with that, but you made it very clear to bring that up in your explanation of this amendment. So why would it not be fair for someone like me to look at this amendment and say, you didn't like something that this agency did, so therefore you're going to cut their budget by 6 FTEs, 348 or $600,000 that Ways and Means has brought before us? To me, that seems like you didn't like what they did previously, so therefore you're going after them and you're going to cut their budget because of something that you're bringing up before us today. Why is that not a fair assumption to be made by members of this body?
So two reasons why that's not a fair assumption, and both of them are because your facts are incorrect. Your facts are incorrect. So
I'm just
trying
saying
to answer
what
your
you
question.
said.
Yes,
Right.
sir. Well, no, you're not. This amendment was written more than a week ago. So the Post and Courier article that I referred to about the gummy bear statues came out 4 days ago. So this reduction of the increase, this is not a decrease of their budget. I mean, and that's the other part.
I understand what you're saying.
But that's what you said. It is not a decrease of their budget.
You're
it is
cutting
simply
money
eliminating
from this proposed budget.
If I'd like to answer your question, if I could.
Well, can we at least start there?
Mr. Speaker.
May I ask that question, Mr. Speaker?
Gentlemen, it's too early to start this back and forth. I want both of you to listen to the other, but let's not walk over each other. Mr. Ott, you ask a question, and then you'll have an opportunity, Mr. Pace, to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pace, but I will interrupt you myself for your first 10 minutes. Would you like your second?
Sure.
Mr. Pace is recognized.
So to finish answering your question, this amendment was written before that article came out. When the article came out, that provided a good example of why this is not a core function of government in general. I support art. I support the arts. I don't think government should be prioritizing an increase of $600,000 a year to the Arts Commission, which already has a budget of, I think, $2 million a year, to provide more of these gummy bear statues as an example, rather than funding more foster care and giving more grants to foster care or DJJ or roads, increasing the budget of road maintenance. Those are core functions of government, and that's where I think the conflict of visions is with this and with how we've operated in the past. So that's the goal. We want to move more toward core functions of government and or reducing the size of the budget in its entirety, and we can't do those if we're increasing, for going from $2 million a year to $2.6 million a year in recurring money for the Arts Commission to do things like give awards to gummy bear statues, just as an example, not as a punitive example to them in particular, That's what their commission is for, hopefully to redress those bizarre decisions that they've made.
Right.
But our position here is to guard the people's money, and I ran on shrinking government, and we don't shrink government by increasing those type of non-core functions of government by, 25% of the total budget, when that's the most recent example in the papers about what they're doing. And it's not just gummy bear statues. There's some other fairly obscene awards that they gave to, if you look the article up, I can send it to you. Not something I think we want to talk about even here.
All right, well, let's just go back to the original question that you and I were just, I understand what you're saying as far as what the budget was last year. You would agree with me that you are cutting what the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 as proposed right now. You would agree that you're cutting that as of right now, right?
Cutting the increase, but not cutting their budget.
Proposed budget.
Proposed budget, but not their current budget.
All right. I mean, simple agreement. I'm not trying to catch or anything. So I guess what I don't understand is then if you're pointing to an example that came out after this particular amendment was filed as a rationale for us to pass this amendment, why didn't you use anything that had already been done as rationale for us passing this amendment? I guess I'm assuming then that you don't have a problem with what the Arts Commission spent money on in the past, and that's why you chose to bring up the issue with the gummy bears, correct?
No, sir. I would say that the actual fundamental foundational argument against reducing this, like I've been trying to say, is that it's not a core function of government in its entirety. Like supporting and subsidizing particular pieces of art is not a core function of government.
Let me just ask you that then.
But the gummy bear statue is a great example of very recently something that they've done.
Well, I'm with you. You're the one proposing this. You're using the statement, this is not a core function of government. So that would lead me to believe that you would advocate for cutting everything else that you don't deem to be a core function of government. You would want to cut that from our budget and then put all of that revenue either back into the hands of the taxpayers or into other line items that you deem to be core functions of government, right? Yeah. Do you believe that to some people, the Arts Commission is a very important function of government? Core, your definition of core might be different than my definition of core. I mean, I could agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
I think economic development is a big deal for the state of South Carolina. I think that providing jobs to the citizenry of this state is a big deal. I think, like you said, educating. I think this is a function of education, Mr. Pace. Can you not at least understand why some folks believe that the arts are a huge part of building our young folks, giving them a broad basis to be able to learn and to grow and to contribute back to society? So would that not be a core function of government?
I think that is where our conflict of visions arises there, is that while I agree arts is extremely important, I believe when government oversteps itself to insert itself into something like arts where it has no business being, it not only distorts the market, but it distorts the art. And we see art that is not good. Objectively bad art, which I know is usually a subjective topic. But gummy bear art, I think we can all agree, is objectively a waste of taxpayer money.
You had me right up until you start going off on that line of articulating your point, and that's why I just come back. It seems like you don't like the Arts Commission, and so that's why you're coming here today and asking to cut the proposed budget. It seems like you just don't like what they're doing. And so now from our pedestal here within this body, we're going to say y'all have been bad, y'all are not doing what you're supposed to do in our eyes. Therefore, we're not going to allow you to add 6 positions to the Arts Commission.
Well, what's the inverse argument? The inverse must be true.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pace. We'll have to hold the inverse argument.
I'll hold the inverse.
The inverse argument for later.
Stavridakis is recognized.
Members, real quick, South Carolina has an arts commission because it provides several vital functions for the people of our state. The arts in South Carolina generate $14.1 billion worth of economic activity, 123,000 plus jobs, and last year alone, $360 plus million in tax revenue generated. So the return on a limited investment is frankly out of the park. Great investment and return on that investment for the people of our state. Some characterizations about some of the kinds of things that are funded, but just so folks know, the Arts Commission and their grants and activities touch every county in the state. So everybody in here benefits, their constituents back home benefit from the work that the commission does. And again, we can get into, cherry picking some things we like or don't like, but just so folks know, one of the absolute key missions of the agency is to promote educational achievement. And South Carolina Arts Commission invests in First Step Center across the state, including 48 faith-based First Step sites. Some of the other schools that they invest in are charter schools around the state, Liberty STEAM Charter School, St. Mary's Help of Christian Schools, South Carolina Virtual Charter School System, Riverview Charter School in Beaufort, Christ Church Episcopal in Greenville, the All Children's Theater, Horry County, First Presbyterian Church of Greenwood, Church of Holy Apostles, Barnwell, Columbia Children's Theater. I mean, just on and on, a list of investments in communities around the state. It was also said that this isn't a cut, and I guess technically that's true, but what we're doing here are trying to replace funds that are going to be lost. There were grant funds that are going to be lost. And just by way of background, the Arts Commission was devastated with cuts during the recession. They never really fully recovered all those cuts, and then the pandemic absolutely devastated arts-related industries around the state. And so these investments are really, really needed. And again, they would be losing funding that's already in place if we don't replace it. And by the way, they're not getting what they asked for. They asked for $3 million recurring to try to maintain the existing funding levels, and the committee approved much less than that. So, there's over 2,000 activity sites around the state. So again, it touches every county. And just the proponent of the amendment, just so you know, I mean, Goose Creek High School in Berkeley County, Philip Simmons Elementary School in Berkeley County, Philip Simmons Middle School in Berkeley County, Howe Hall Elementary School in Berkeley County, Bonner Elementary School in Berkeley County, Monk's Corner Elementary School in Berkeley County, Marrington Middle School in Berkeley County, Sedgefield Middle School in Berkeley County, Berkeley Alternative School, Cainhoy Elementary in Berkeley County. So, yeah, you might want to know that these investments are in your schools all across the state, including folks who have their names on this amendment. So,
Mr. Magnus is recognized for a question.
I guess my first question goes back to when you call out these specifics about the Arts Commission. When we're talking about reducing the increase in funding, would that reduction in increase cut those specific programs that you've mentioned?
well, that's not my decision, right? I mean, but I would imagine if they have less money, cuts are going to happen.
Right, but this doesn't leave them with less money.
It does, actually, because, again, they've been operating for 3 years on a number of grants to provide a lot of these programs, and those grants are expiring. And these programs, mostly educational investments, have been really important in these communities and in these schools around the state. And if they don't get the increase, those programs will not continue at the same level that they're at now anyway.
Who is providing those grants right now? Who has been providing the grants?
So the grants, the grant partnership was approved through the State Department of Education. They're ESSER grants.
Okay. So should we be funding maybe the arts through the Department of Education? Would that be a better approach to keep it? I know we love to streamline government around here. We've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a better way than having another state agency and adding more employees and adding more dollars, which you're saying you don't really even know exactly how it's going to be used, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm telling you a lot of examples of exactly how it's used. But this is one of our leanest, most efficient agencies. I don't think lumping them into the State Department of Education would improve anything. And I think they do a great job, again, making maximum use out of return on investment, limited investment. And you see the numbers, like you were talking about a few $100,000 and of investment, and you're talking about a return of hundreds of millions in tax revenue for us to spend on core functions of government that folks like to talk about. And then, of course, all of the economic activity that means, you know, more money in the pockets of our constituents, plus the educational improvements. I mean, how many things do we get to invest in that improve educational performance, create jobs and economic prosperity, and also improve the quality of life of our citizens? I would say you'd be hard-pressed to name a lot of other investments that we make that do that level of good across multiple criteria.
So, Representative, do you think that without this money, this increase in funding going to the Arts Commission, that we would see less art in South Carolina?
I think you would see less investment in all of the programs that they undertake, including educational programs and, yes, art-based.
Right. I mean, we would see less potentially, again, assuming that the Department of Education doesn't come back and also provide funding for these programs. I guess my question is, do you really think that people aren't going to make art if we in the government don't give them the money to do so? I mean, my understanding of art would be, look, I have an inspirational moment and I'm going to paint a beautiful picture of God's creation. I do that without the government giving me any money.
Yeah. Will art disappear? No. But you are pigeonholing what this agency does into a very limited area. They don't just give people money to produce art, okay? Again, their overriding function is arts-based education in schools, okay? And those programs are critical, and a lot of them aren't just in schools. I named for you a number of faith-based entities where they implement these programs in summer and otherwise, and these are important educational and developmental programs for kids across, all different walks of life in South Carolina. On top of that, again, it pays for itself and then some. It generates way more money than we're investing in it to come back to the state treasury, and it enriches folks that we represent, both economically and in terms of their quality of life. So
well, Representative, I think we'll have
investment.
to respectfully disagree. I do not believe that government is the best place to keep pushing people to do art. I think the best place is the private sector. I think people are creative on their own, and we don't have to force them to be artistic. Thank you.
Sure.